Jersey's own Zach Gelb.
Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure.
The Zach Gelb Show continues
On Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, Zach Gelb Show on a Friday from the Princeton Orthopedic Associate Studios, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, 920 a.m., Bucks, Burlington, Mercer counties, or worldwide on the web at 920thejersey.com. Now joining us on the hotline is the Spanish play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Yankees, and does a tremendous job when he is a talk show host on Sports Radio 94 WIP. And that is my good friend, Rickie Ricardo, who joins us right now. Rickie, how are you?
Great, Zach. Good Friday afternoon, everybody. It's going to be a great sports weekend.
No doubt about that, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes. Well, the start of our sports weekend got a little bit more interesting yesterday when Jason Peters had some controversial comments about Chip Kelly, and I love them. How was about your reaction to what Jason Peters had to say yesterday?
I thought it was about time that somebody stepped up and really made public what the guys really felt in that clubhouse. I may have mentioned it to you, Zach. I know I've brought it up several times on my show, that there was an air of tense pressure in that Eagles locker room last year where, to a man, you could feel a certain level of discomfort with the relationship that each guy, and I'm not going to say each guy, but the majority of the guys had with the head coach, the guy that I like to refer to as the Ayatollah of football, and Chip Kelly. As the season wore on and as things kept going south toward the end of the season and the ship kept sinking deeper and deeper, you could cut it with a knife in that Eagles locker room. And Jason Peters, being one of the team leaders, an outspoken guy, a guy that's not afraid to step up and make his feelings known, it didn't surprise me one bit that he finally opened up about the whole situation. And believe me, like Peters, there are several more.
And that's the one thing with the National Football League. You need a head coach that's going to adapt. Everything you run isn't going to work, and we all know Chip was very arrogant. He didn't get along well with the players, and that's clear now by the comments of Jason Peters. And he also didn't know how to connect with those players, and he really did tire them out. And the guys that did speak up, let's say a LaShawn McCoy or a Deshaun Jackson, were shown the door, so it wasn't a healthy relationship with Chip and the Eagles last year, Rickie.
Absolutely not. Remember, we had the cornerback whose name escapes me now. That went to the Seahawks. Remind me, Zach, who was had spoke up during training camp.
Carrie Williams. Carrie Williams.
Yeah, Carrie Williams, who had opened up about how they were being overworked early, and he was basically shunned before he was shown the door, and finally ended up signing with the Seahawks. So that was one of the early guys that was, brave enough, I guess, for lack of a better term, to really speak out about the situation. But it goes back a couple of years. This didn't pop up just last season. This had been growing and growing since Chip took that position with the media, with the players, even with the employees, within the complex. There was never a warmth, never a relationship. Look, I'm a broadcaster for the team, and Merrill Reese and I are there for every play of every game. As far as that, when that team is on the field, we're there. And neither one of us really ever developed a good relationship with Chip Kelly the way that the team broadcasters should. So I can see it from experience. And now, look, in the short time that Doug Peterson's been there, it's a 180. It really is a complete 180 turnaround as far as the availability to the coach, as far as the way he communicates with you. You're made to feel like you're part of the family, something that did not occur under Chip Kelly.
Doug Peterson is a likable guy. I don't know if he'll be a good head football coach. I need to see a little bit more out of him, and he's very new to this job, coming over from Kansas City, familiar with Andy Reid and also this Eagles organization, and we hear the words player-coach when describing a coach like a Doug Peterson. How does he decipher how to still be a player's coach but not being a doormat for the players where they just walk all over him? Will that be tough for him?
Well, that's the trick. Zach, we've seen guys over the years, able to walk that tightrope. Some guys fall off to one side, and some guys fall off that tightrope to the other side. Other guys, the masters of it in the trade, as far as all the major sports, a guy like a Joe Torre, for example, that was known to be a player's guy but still had their respect. You had, Tom Coughlin in later years. Coughlin, when he made adjustments after it was brought to his attention really by team leaders like Strahan. We know the stories in years past where you had some guys that were dictators that got pulled over a little bit, maybe by some of the team leaders, team captains, and said, look, you've got to make a change here. It's not up to us, it's up to you. So that's going to be Doug Peterson's mission here, is to establish respect, establish a leadership role where guys look up to him and will run through a wall for him, but at the same time know that he has their back when it comes to things off the field, in training camp. Look, this is intense heat they've had these days. Peterson's been great with the players, monitoring the way they practice and the intense heat wave that we've had, keeping them hydrated, just a different approach to maintaining their health and sanity during camp compared to Chip Kelly.
Rickie Ricardo joins us right now. Carson Wentz, what's been your first impressions of him?
I like him. Obviously, he's got the red jacket on, so you can't touch him. I'll be able to give you a better and much deeper analysis of the kid when he's able to take a hit and when he has to run out of the pocket and get away from pressure. While he's wearing the red little flat jacket, that little construction jacket there, obviously he's untouchable. But his footwork looks very, very good as compared to some other young quarterbacks that I've seen at this stage. You can tell by the way he moves his feet, the way he sets up, that he is a much more, believe it or not, coming from the school that he comes from, he's a much more polished quarterback in his setup and just the way he goes about playing the position, even compared to, I'll even say Matt Barkley, for example, who came from a quarterback university, a factory of quarterbacks at USC. It is a distinct difference just looking from afar in just a few camps, because obviously it hasn't even been a preseason game yet. But just from watching this kid set up and the way he moves his feet and gets set up at the quarterback position, it's different even from a guy like Matt Barkley.
Now, you're not going to see a whole lot of Carson Wentz. That's the Eagles' plan this year, but I don't know if that's going to work out because the fans are going to be wanting Carson Wentz, and also they're banking on Sam Bradford staying healthy, and I don't think that's a good thing to bank on because the past of his career says he most likely won't be healthy this year. But what's your confidence level in Sam Bradford to lead this team this year?
I think Bradford's going to have probably the best year. I'm predicting Bradford will have the best year of his professional career. There's a combination of things. I think he mentally is over the whole contract thing. The couple of conversations I've had with Sam, he's a much more relaxed, at ease quarterback. And maybe, Zach, that also goes back to the whole Chip Kelly thing. I think Chip, put a lot. He made his quarterbacks successful, but he put a lot on their plate. It seems that Bradford has a very good relationship with this coaching staff. Remember, there are a lot of quarterbacks involved here. DiFilippo, you've got Frank Reich, Peterson. These are all guys that are quarterbacks. So he relates much better to this coaching staff, and he seems much more comfortable. This is his first fully healthy. Remember, this is the second year coming back from the second knee operation. So it's probably the healthiest he's ever been since he's been a professional quarterback. So I'm looking for Bradford. If he can stay upright, and that's the whole key, is to keep Bradford upright. If they can keep him upright, I think you'll have the best season of his pro career. And I think Chase Daniel is really kind of the odd man out here. He's a very highly paid second quarterback, and, he's the second banana to the starter, and he's really also the second banana to the youngster behind him, because if Bradford goes down, who do you think Eagle fans are going to want to see in Bradford's place? Chase Daniel or Carson Wentz? And, if Daniel gets into a game and does not play well, you're going to be hearing the fans clamoring to eliminate Daniel and put Carson Wentz in as soon as possible. But until we get to that point, I really do think that Bradford's going to have his best year as a pro.
And also, when Sam Bradford, the minute he throws an interception, there's going to be fans imploring to see Carson Wentz. Does he have the emotional toughness to survive in a city like Philadelphia and be a quarterback for this year when every mistake is going to be magnified even more for the guys that are behind him?
I think he really got a taste of that last year. Bradford got hit from every angle with every piece of criticism you could possibly hit a guy with. On the radio, in print, on Twitter, everywhere. It was Bradford mania. It was open season on Sam Bradford last year, and he survived it. I think he's got a year of the Philadelphia market scrutiny under his belt. I think he knows how to deal with it much better this year. This is a guy that doesn't read the papers. I can bet you he's not listening to you and I here right now. He doesn't listen to talk radio, doesn't read the papers.
No wonder I don't like him.
He blocks out as much of the media, conversation about the NFL and the Eagles and himself as he possibly can. And I really do think that the year under his belt of being pelted left and right with criticism did him a lot of good and has maybe developed a thicker skin for this upcoming season.
I like the offensive line for the Eagles. The running back and wide receivers, not so much. How do you view the rest of this offense when we're not talking about the quarterbacks?
The wide receivers are my concern. Aguilar has got to step up. He's a first-round pick. He did absolutely nothing last year. Let's see what Josh Huff, the lone Oregon, the Duck holdover, if you want to look at it that way. Although there's another guy on the defensive side, another Oregon Duck, if I'm not mistaken. But really, of the guys that Chip Kelly went out of his way to draft, you've got to see something from Huff more than we've seen flashes with the speed there. But Aguilar is the guy that has got to step up. He was the number 20 pick in the first round last year with a lot of hype. He obviously had the speed bump with the legal allegations here early. He's the guy that has got to put a little fear in defensive coordinators on the other side. If he can't do that, if he's just going to be one of the pack, then you're relying on guys like Givens or Reuben Randall, who've had cups of coffee around the NFL, have had moments. But number one, guys like Randall have not been able to stay healthy. When healthy, haven't really taken that step up to the next level of being a top-rated receiver. I'm looking at Aguilar as really being the key to the receiver core. I think the rest of the offense, look, Ryan Matthews, we know what he is. Zach, he's already hurt. I mean, camp opened up 3 days ago. That guy's already hurt. Sproles gets a one-year contract extension today because Sproles is a pro's pro. I like what I've seen from Smallwood, the rookie. I think he's going to develop into a very, very good back. But really, the big question mark on offense are the wide receivers. Matthews is what he is. He's a slot guy. He's not a speed burner. He's not a guy that you're going to have to double. It's Aguilar that's got to step up.
Let's get to the defense. I like the addition of Jim Schwartz, and I also think Chip Kelly not calling the plays on the offensive side of the ball will help the defense out and get them the proper rest. The only concerns I have with this Eagles defense is the discipline factor, because when Jim Schwartz was the head coach of the Lions, those teams weren't that disciplined. And I'm also intrigued, Ricky, to see what Hicks could do coming back from that injury.
Let's go first with the discipline thing. You know what? Philadelphia defenses, traditionally, when do we love our defenses in Philadelphia? When they are as maniacal, as aggressive as possibly can be. Now, short of stupid penalties, and we live in a different world as far as the way you hit people. You can't be late. This cannot be the Buddy Ryan, defenses of the past. I get that. You can't really even be as aggressive as some of the Jim Johnson defenses that we saw, 15, 20 years ago. But having said that, I think Schwartz is a perfect defensive coordinator for a team like the Eagles, for a fan base that enjoys its aggressive defense that the Eagles will be providing this year. I think Jordan Hicks is going to step up to be an absolute stud linebacker in the National Football League. From what we saw of him early last year, everything is there to this guy becoming an all-pro. And I think Schwartz is the perfect coach to lead a guy like Hicks, to star status. I think he will take a step forward this year and become an elite linebacker in the National Football League. And I tell you what, Zach, I think there's a lot more depth to the Eagles secondary than what it looks like on paper. There's a lot of good young talent there, and I like what I see out of the secondary. They hit hard. I think you've got veterans like McKelvin that came over from the Buffalo Bills, and you've got Mills. You've got a lot of a good mixture of youth and experience in that secondary that I think is going to really be much, much better.
Rickie Ricardo joins us. Okay, let's talk some baseball. To the Yankees, I want to know, Miller here, Beltran here, come past the trade deadline?
Yes.
Both
I
of
don't
them?
think either one goes in. I've heard the Lucas Giolito rumors. today, the highly touted pitching prospect from the Washington Nationals. Let's remember this. As we enter play tonight, the Yankees are only 3.5 games behind the Red Sox for the second wild card position with 61, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 61 games left to play. They blew a 7-game lead last year in first place. I get it. I think Girardi has managed these players much differently this year, that they won't run out of gas like they did in the month of September last year. There are some question marks that need to be cleared up. One of them is Mark Teixeira. Are you going to get anything in these last 2 months of his Yankee contract? What are you going to get from a guy who consistently over his career has given you 25, 30, 35 home runs, 100 RBIs more or less per season? He is so down in his numbers right now during his walk year that I've got to imagine that a guy like Mark Teixeira will have a breakout August and September. If you get production from Teixeira there, and Beltran continues to have the kind of year that he's had so far, then I really do think that the Yankees, who are very interested in keeping that ballpark filled with fans during months of August, and you've got a lot of big games. You got the Subway Series coming up here in August. You know they're not going to want to weaken themselves to lose to the Mets. They haven't played the Mets yet. The Dodgers still come in, which is a big rivalry. Still have lots of games with the Red Sox in the American League East. I do not think, beyond what we saw, that if anything, Zach, they might be buyers instead of sellers. I think they may be looking for starting pitching. And let me tell you, I will go out on a limb and say I would not be the least bit surprised if the Yankees at least made a very strong play for Chris Sale.
Wow.
When you expect this team to be a seller, watch Cashman turn around and at least make a strong attempt, and we've heard rumors of this, make an attempt to pry Chris Sale away from the Chicago White Sox.
I would trade Beltran if I was them, though, because, and I don't know what you could get back for Beltran, but I think you can maybe get him to a team that needs a bat. I know that the Yankees, they're still in it technically. I just don't think they're better than the other 3 teams in front of them in the AL East, though, Ricky.
Well, I don't know if you can convince Yankee brass of that. And there's one thing about the Yankee mentality is that they're not in the business of making another team better. Simply making the Indians or the Giants or whoever it may be that might be a Beltran away from being put over the top for a World Championship. That is not the Yankees could think completely differently than that. It's not in their DNA to say, well, this year we're 3.5 out. We're not as good as the other teams. I don't think the Yankee brass from the top, from the man named Steinbrenner and the son of George, who is still running this team, I don't think from the top down they have that mentality. And it might be logical. The way you're thinking, Zach, might be in baseball sense the completely logical way to go about it. It's not the Yankee way to go about it. Yankee way, logical way don't always mesh.
Real quickly before we let you run, last time I had you on the show, you did a touchdown pass for us in Spanish. I'm wondering, because I want to hear a Carson Wentz touchdown pass in Spanish now. So let me try to ask it to you the proper way and grade me on my Spanish. Quiero escuchar un pase de anotación de Carson Wentz en español, por favor, Ricky.
Vamos entonces a ver a Wentz. Recibe la bola hacia atrás, buscando el pase, vuelve a la derecha, tira un hombre abierto por el lado derecho, es Agolor recibe la 5 a la 10, touchdown Eagles. How about that? That's all I can do within an office. Here's that.
Oh, come on, that's the WFAN at 345 Hudson where you're at right now. Go into Chernoff's office and start screaming in Spanish, he'll be fine. There's probably not a lot of people there anyway. It's a Friday at 4:36, Ricky.
No, that's right. Next time when you have me on from, let's talk from the NovaCare complex, and we'll let one loose for you.
Thanks so much, Ricky. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Zach.
There's Rickie Ricardo. I love him. Love him. I always love the Spanish calls, too. And that's what I want to hear. Although I'm not listening to the Spanish broadcast, and no offense to Ricky, but I wouldn't understand it if I needed to listen to some play-by-play. I'm listening to Merrill Reese if I'm listening to an Eagles game. But I want to hear a touchdown pass from Carson Wentz this year. Are the Eagles going to give you that opportunity to be able to hear that? In their plan, it's Sam Bradford for the entire season. And then they'll be able to flip him for something if he plays well. And you coddle Carson Wentz. You put all this stock, you invest all this stock in Carson Wentz, especially how this fan base is so hungry to see a winner. This fan base isn't stupid. They know Carson Wentz is the future. And at some point this season, they're going to want to see Carson Wentz. I have no confidence in Bradford. I don't care what happened last year. I saw what kind of guy he is in the offseason, where he was crying through his agent, Tom Condon. That's not a guy I want as my quarterback. And when the Eagles brought him back, they didn't anticipate they were going to be able to get the second pick in the draft and move up through not one but two trades. But that's what they did. And they paid Sam Bradford a whole lot of money. And it's a favorable contract still for the Eagles. He's not going to be here next year, but no one wanted him. And the reason no one wanted him is because they've seen what he's made out of in years past. And it's nothing. It's a lot of injuries, a lot of overthrowing the wide receivers, and a lot of interceptions. It's not the same quarterback that we saw in college. It's not the quarterback that we saw win the Heisman Trophy. He's very far from that. He's been a bad quarterback in the National Football League. And I have zero confidence that Sam Bradford's going to make it through a grueling 16-game schedule. I just don't see it. And if you put out Chase Daniel in week 7 or week 8, yikes. It's going to get ugly. Fans are going to get agitated. They're not going to be happy. At the very minimum, I need to see Carson Wentz, unless the Eagles are magically in a playoff run, and I don't think they'll be in a playoff chase, even how bad the NFC East is, because there's questions at running back, there are questions at wide receiver, and there's also a big question mark at quarterback. At the very worst case scenario, and I've been saying this all week, I need to see Carson Wentz starting the final 4 games of the season. He doesn't need to take a year off. Sure, you could coddle him, move him along, slow it down for him, get him ready, not put him in game 1, which game 1 wouldn't be the worst case since they're going up against the Browns. But I get that thought process. But you can't have him take a full year off and never make the field. He needs to see the field at some point this season, and it can't just be for 1 game. I need to see him for 2, 3, 4. Give me at least a quarter of a season this year out of Carson Wentz. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, 920 AM and 920thejersey.com. Love talking to Rickie Ricardo. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios is 4:40. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side. We got some Phillies talk to do. Phillies win last night, but Aaron Nola, he concerns me. I'll tell you why next.